Oh, what's going on, everybody? What's happening? Good afternoon. It's Friday, December the 27th, 2024, 1:12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name's Dave McRae, coming to you live from the Voice Man Studios in Toronto, Canada, and this is episode 301. 301. We've done 300 of these shows. Some of them have been great. Some of them have been maybe not so good. Some of them have been kind of, middle of the road. 2024 is ending in just a few days. 2025 is just around the corner. What are you looking forward to in 2025? What are you excited about? Are you excited about 2025? It's hard to believe, 2025. Hard to believe. Hope you had a good Christmas. Hope you're having a good Hanukkah. I believe Hanukkah is still going. Of course, if you celebrate the 12 days of Christmas, you might still be going yourselves. But nonetheless, hope you had a good Christmas. Hope the fat man was good to you and he shimmied his fat ass down your chimney and gave you lots of good gifts this year. And I hope you were able to spend it with friends and family and loved ones, and that it was a good time. It's a crazy world out there, and I just hope that it was a good time for you. And so on this episode of McRae Live, I want to talk about the 2024 horror movies that I have seen. Now, these are not, this is in no particular order. I'm not ranking them, but these are, there might be a few horror movies, maybe I've left off, I'm not sure, but these are like 10 or 11 horror movies that I've seen this year, 2024. Horror movies released in 2024, not just horror movies I've watched in 2024, but 2024 horror movies that I want to kind of just let you guys know that I've seen, because I know sometimes you guys are a little unsure which movies I've seen and which movies I haven't. Now, there are still some movies that you guys have likely seen that I have not seen, like Terrifier 3 I have not seen. I have not seen The Heretic yet. I've not seen, there's a couple others that I've been wanting to see, but I just haven't had a chance to see them. But there's a list here that I have seen, and I thought, let's dive into it and talk about them today on this episode. And because, and then you can jump into the comment section below and let me know what horror movies you have seen in 2024, maybe what some of your favorites are. You can do a ranking if you want. This isn't a ranking. However, I am going to leave my favorite horror movie that I've seen this year last. I am going to leave it last. So it's in no particular order except for the last one. The last one I'm going to show you is my favorite horror movie that I've seen this year. Now remember, I'm not a movie reviewer, so I'm not seeing everything and anything under the sun. And just because a horror movie comes out, I don't go to the movie theater to see it. I don't necessarily watch it. It's really got to I want to see that. Or maybe it's a sequel and I'm like, I really like the first one, so I'm going to go watch, the second one. There's got to be really something about it to entice me to either go to the movie theater to see it or watch it at home on streaming. So just know that I haven't seen everything, that maybe my number one horror movie for me this year will change, or would have changed, or will change if I end up seeing the others. I'm not sure. But nonetheless, so yeah, just please know that it's no particular order except for the last one. The last one I will save for, my number one, so to speak. But first, let's see how you guys and gals are doing. Great to see you all here. Hope you all had a fantastic Christmas and you're enjoying the holidays. I know a couple of super chats came in, so let me get them. Eddie Chase sends in 20 shekels. Thank you, Eddie. And says a few weeks ago, local theater was showing Friday the 13th Part 2, and Warrington Gillette was going to sign stuff and talk. He was billed as original Jason Voorhees. He was billed as such, but we know it was Steve Dash. To be continued. Okay. And then he follows up with Part 2. Thank you, Eddie. I'm sure Warrington Gillette is lovely, but does he have a history of morning it up? I see what you're saying. And overstating, exaggerating his contribution to the movie. Not that I'm aware of, Eddie. I don't think this is a Tony Moran situation where, Tony Moran has blatantly and conveniently and deliberately misrepresented his contribution to the original Halloween, and intentionally. I don't know if Warrington Gillette has done that. I mean, it is true. He is he is Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th Part 2. Now, is he Jason Voorhees of the whole thing? No. So it's a little bit of a semantics game. But I'm unaware of him misrepresenting himself. I don't really know. I don't think it's a Tony Moran situation. So I wouldn't worry too much about it, at this point. The Tony Moran thing is he will have, I don't know about anymore, because myself and people like me and Sean Clark and others have raised such a stink over the years that fans really began to notice and point it out. But there was a time when Tony Moran would be at a convention and he would have a banner behind him, and the Michael Myers on the banner was Nick Castle. There's been many, and Sean Clark has told me many stories about how he deliberately and intentionally misleads his, I don't know if he does it anymore, but used to. I don't know if Warrington Gillette does that. So, but that's really cool though. That's really cool. And then Josh McKenna, $9.99. Thank you, Josh. And says, I got my holiday sweater. Yes. And Victoria Miro autograph yesterday. Amazing. My friends think the sweater is cool. I'm not embarrassed to wear Jess's sweater as a guy, nor should you be. It's unisex, by the way. Guys can rock Jess's sweater too. I absolutely agree. Very, very cool. I'm so glad it came. Josh, I'm so glad it came. And obviously there's more to come, obviously. So yeah, that's awesome. Very, very cool. Thank you for letting me know, Josh. Thank you. And then Davey Deathray is here. He says, I think for the most part, it was Steve Dash who played Jason Part 2. It was, but Warrington was the face of Jason, that jump scare. Yeah. And as long as, on any advertisement or it is Warrington Gillette's part, then I think that's fine. Like I've said, I don't think there's anything wrong with Tony. I mean, I know why he does it, because Tony Moran is embarrassed by his role. He thinks his role is nothing. I was on screen for 3.8 seconds. Yeah, but you're the face of Michael Myers. You're the unmasked Michael Myers. That's pretty cool. I've always been of the mindset, own that. Own that. Okay, no, you're not the guy that walks across the street, or the guy that sits up and turns his head, or the guy that kills Andy or Bob. No, you're not Nick Castle. But you're still unmasked Michael. You're still a part of Halloween, of the legacy of one of the greatest horror movies of all time. Own it. Go to the convention. Maybe your line's not going to be as long as Nick Castle's, but why would it be? Why would it be, right? I mean, that's just the reality of the game. But, when you know the kind of person that Tony Moran is, it's not surprising. Not surprising at all. Not surprising at all. But, and then, okay, we'll get this last one here from, you can send in more, of course, but the last one before we jump into the main topic here. Josh McKenna, $9.99. Thank you, Josh. Says, I showed my friend the Billy films yesterday. I'm paraphrasing, but they basically said they loved Victoria's acting in terms of her crying, and it seemed so real and not overacting for the emotions. That's great. That's great. Yeah, no, there were some people that watched, again, it's art, right? So you can please some people and you don't please others. Some people thought Victoria's crying at the end of chapter 1. There were a few people that thought it was over the top. I disagree. Perhaps maybe they're used to what's known as the pretty cry, the Hollywood cry. We wanted the dirty cry. And that was intentional. We said that to Victoria. We don't want the pretty cry. We want the really emotional, dirty cry, the cry that you don't want to show any of your friends that you do, right? You know what I mean? And that's what we wanted. And so she delivered that in spades. I mean, she was amazing. And so I disagree with those that feel that it was over the top. I think it was great. But that's awesome. That's awesome. I'm so glad that they liked the more authentic, because you would. I mean, if this was actually happening, this wouldn't be, so polished and clean and, crying like, pick your pretty cry in some horror movies or movies in general. But I'm so glad they like the movies. Awesome. Okay, now let's jump into the main topic here and let's do this. So, again, no particular order. except for number one. These are 2024 horror movies that I've seen this year. So these are not, they're all horror movies, I think they are anyway, that were all released in 2024. I haven't seen every one, okay? These are just kind of like a 10, top 11, whatever it was. I haven't seen every horror movie that was released this year, but these are the ones I have seen, the main ones I've seen, and ones that I really liked. It's in no particular order except for my number one. So here we go. All right. This one here, Abigail. I really liked Abigail. I'm not a vampire kind of guy. I don't dislike a good vampire film, but I'm not really into it. It's not really my jam. Like I couldn't, you know what I mean? Some people are really all about vampire movies, but this surprised me. I know in the trailer, it obviously, you find out that she's, would it have packed more of a punch if we didn't know that she was the vampire until we got to the movie? Yeah, sure, of course it would have. I don't know how you would have cut a trailer and cut the marketing around that, though. I'm not saying it can't be done. It's just something I would have to revisit and figure out. But there's still a twist, though. There's still a twist in there, which I will leave off the table because it isn't in the marketing. But I really like this film. I really like this film. I know it's kind of maybe hit and miss for some. Maybe it's because I don't have an emotional attachment to vampires, so I just went in and I enjoyed it. It's directed by the same guys, Radio Silence, of course, that, did the Scream 5 and 6, that did Ready or Not. I think it's directed by them, right? Yeah. And I thought it was fun. It was fun. I had a good time with it. And I thought the ensemble was good, and I like movies with big houses and different corridors, and no surprise there when you look at the Billy films. But I like things like that, and yeah, I thought it was good. I thought it was not my favorite movie of all time, but I really enjoyed it. Again, no particular order except for number one, but I enjoyed it. I liked Abigail. Okay, the next one will be, now this is interesting. This is a Netflix film, and I don't know what any of you guys think of it. Maybe you saw it, maybe you didn't. But I quite enjoyed this movie. I was, every now and then, I watch a movie that's a streaming movie like Carry On. I know Carry On is getting lambasted, and when I'm just I thought it was all right. I thought I had a good time. There were things in it that of course, like every movie, I'm but for a streaming Netflix film, I thought there was some genuine moments of suspense, and I kind of enjoyed it. And this movie's the same thing. This movie here, Don't Move. When I watched this, I was I think what it is it's such a simple premise. And as somebody who has spent, 20 years in the entertainment business as a professional voice actor, who is now, really buckling down and trying to move in the direction of also having a film career as well. I look at a movie like this and I think to myself, I love how simple it is. I love the premise. There were some things in it I would have done differently. But overall, I'm you know what? There were some genuine moments of suspense. I thought it was pretty good. When you take it for what it is, right? I was I thought this was all right. If I had made this movie, you know what I mean? As my first feature or something like that, I'd be pretty proud of it. I'd be yeah, this is I think this is all right. It's pretty good. It's not going to win any awards. But not every movie does, right? Not every movie has to blow you away. Not every movie has to be the greatest film in the history of cinema. Do you know what I mean? I think in today's society, I think we get too black or white like that. You know what I mean? I'd give this movie a 7 out of 10, maybe something like that, which is a really good score. I know if you're part of the younger, grew up in the digital era crowd, a 7 out of 10 might seem like a piece of shit. I've had people say that. 7 out of 10, what's wrong? Why didn't you like it? I'm 7 out of 10, that's a good score. That's a good 7 out of 10. That's a good score. Even if you see a movie that's got 70% on Rotten Tomatoes, that means 7 out of every 10 people really liked it. If somebody said, you know what, 7 out of every 10 people are going to die of a heart attack in this room, you'd be like, oh my God, that's a lot of people. My odds aren't very good. Do you know what I mean? So if you say, 7 out of every 10 people in this room like this movie, I think that's pretty good. I don't know what the Rotten Tomatoes score is on this movie. I'm just saying in a general sense, right? In a general sense, that's pretty good. Anyways, I liked it. I thought there was some genuine moments of some good suspense. And it was a simple film with a simple premise. And it was kind of like, yeah, like that's, I like movies like that, and it just kind of sort of inspired me a bit. Like, I think I could have made this movie. Like I like that. Like there's some movies, obviously, where I am in my filmmaking journey. I'm like, yeah, I obviously wouldn't, nor would I be hired to, but I'm like, I would never want to touch a Star Wars movie, a Marvel movie. I'm just like, I don't know what it's way too, I got to work up, if I'm ever gonna, I can't, but these kinds of, these more simple kind of linear, kind of creepy, eerie, like that's my jam, man. That's my jam. I'm not saying that this is the greatest representation of that. But I was pleasantly surprised that I liked it as much as I did. Let's just say that. Let's just say that. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. All right. Now here's one that is definitely my jam. I know it has divided a lot of people. And I know that one of the big reasons why everybody flocked to see it was because of the marketing. And it had one of the best marketing campaigns I've seen in years. There's no doubt about it. But I still don't think, maybe for those of you that didn't like it because you were, maybe you just had too high expectations. But I really, really liked Longlegs. I did. Longlegs is my kind of horror movie. It's my kind of jam. The mood, the atmosphere, the way it was shot, it is dripping with mood and atmosphere. And do I think that the movie is as good as the marketing? I don't know. I mean, maybe not. But I don't think it's a bad movie. I don't think it's a bad movie at all. I don't think it's anything close to a bad movie. I actually think it's a really good movie. Very good movie. And again, if my kind of jam, very inspiring. If I had made this movie, I would be perfectly happy. If I had made this movie, I'd be like, yeah, that's great. If this was like my first feature and I'm making a movie that ends up like this, I'd be happy with that. Now, there's things in it that I would have done differently 100%. There's things that I obviously would have bought. I obviously would have brought my own Dave McRae, senses to the piece. So there's things I would have done differently. But overall, I really like the vibe. I really like the performances. I like the tone and the aesthetic and the style, the feeling. There's a feeling you get when you watch the movie, right? I love those kinds of horror movies where the atmosphere and the mood is so palpable that even when there's nothing creepy going on screen, there's this constant, you as an audience member are in a constant perpetual state of feeling eerie, right? You're just feeling this eeriness. Even when nothing eerie is happening on screen, it just could be two people talking in a room. But there's just that eerie feeling through the whole piece. I love films like that. Longlegs is a great example of that. And I thought the marketing was great. And yeah, if you were to ask me again, do you think the marketing is as good as the movie? Probably not. But I don't think the the margins are so far apart. Like, I don't think it's like, the marketing was like, 100% and the movie's like 10%. Like, no. I mean, anybody who thinks this is a dog shit film has never seen dog shit movies. That's just, it's way too hyperbolic. I thought it was really good. And one of my favorite, and I totally would have done this. Again, there's a lot of things in the movie I like. There's a few things I definitely would have done a bit differently, but one of my favorite moments is when, I forget her name now, but our lead actress here is in her place and she's in kind of like she's at her desk and she's talking to her mother. And the way that Osgood Perkins decides to frame the shot right? We have our actress on the right side of the frame, and there's a lot of, sort of negative space, we'll just say, on the right side. And you have, and it's set up like that on purpose, because what you see is your eye is drawn to the open doorway, which leads to the kitchen. Now, there's nothing eerie that's happening, but psychologically, and it's done like this on purpose, of course, Perkins is wanting you to believe that at any moment, somebody could step out, something could happen, a noise, you know what I mean? That's why it's framed that way. And it's smart. Like, I like things like that. Again, when you look at the Billy films, if you pay close attention, and how we structure our shots and our framing and how we craft our shots is in a similar sort of mindset and manner, right? It's all about that cinematic language. And so I like that shot. I noticed it instantly. And now sometimes something does happen, right? Sometimes, it's funny, sometimes you will see a shot like that, they'll draw it out and they'll let it linger because they want to subvert the expectations of the audience, because they want you to believe that something's going to happen, but then nothing does. And that's just a great moment of suspense. Other times, they will let it go, subvert your expectations, making you think something's going to happen, but then it goes on so long that you think nothing's going to happen, only to then have something happen, and then it subverts your expectations again to bring it back to actually have something happening. You know what I mean? You kind of, you see those things happen sometimes too. Didn't happen here, of course, but you do see that. We kind of go back and forth, right? Anyways, that's just one example of one moment and shots that I really like about the film. Now, the ending of the movie, of course, again, that's part of maybe what I would have done a bit differently. But overall, I think it's a very effective psychological thriller / horror movie. All right. Again, if you're just joining me, no particular order except for my last one. No particular order except for my last one. All right, let's see this one here. Immaculate with Sydney Sweeney, Miss Boobs herself. Although she didn't show them in this movie. I guess because she's, a nun, and that would have been a lot of boobage for a nun. No, but I liked this movie. I actually, you know what? I'm a fan of Sydney Sweeney, and not just because she's, pretty and likes to show her boobs. I think she's actually, she's one of those actresses that I think she's a lot better than I think she probably gets credit for, because she's obviously showing a lot of boobage in a lot of movies that she's in. And obviously for, us men, obviously, we don't mind that. But at the end of the day, I think if you look past that, and this is one of those movies where she was terrific in this. She was very, very good, and especially the ending of the film and the places where her character needed to go emotionally, I thought was really good. I quite enjoyed it. Now, I have not seen The Last Omen, or The First Omen? No, The First Omen. I have not seen The First Omen. So I know there are people that say they like that movie better. Maybe I would too, I don't know. But again, if you're just joining me, I have not seen The First Omen. I have not seen The Heretic. I have not seen Terrifier 3. There's other films that I haven't seen yet, 2024 films I haven't seen yet, horror movies. So I don't know. But with this movie, I quite liked it. I liked where it went. I liked that it went there. I like that we didn't see the baby either at the end. It's all done through theater of the mind. It's exactly the same choices I would have made, because I think it's very effective, and I quite enjoyed it. Again, these aren't like, I'm not, giving movie reviews, so I'm not going to go in depth on every movie. I might talk a little bit longer on one over the other if, I'm really excited, but overall, I really like this movie. I enjoyed it. I did. Immaculate. All right. Here's another one. Late Night with the Devil. Late Night with the Devil. Now, I think this was the first movie I saw in the movie theater this year in 2024, back in like March or April or whatever it was. And I did not like this movie as much as I was wanting to like this movie. I did not like the movie. I did like the movie, but not as much as I wanted to. Again, though, I look at a movie like this and I think to myself, had I made this movie, would I, like, if this was my first feature, would I be happy? Yeah, I'd be happy with this. Directed by two brothers, I believe. But I thought it was good. I like the premise. I like the setting. I like the idea. I just feel that if it was in I don't know if this was just, who knows? I don't know. But I would have gone further with it, more psychologically disturbing. That's just sort of where I would have wanted to take it and gone. And it didn't quite go there for me. It went a little bit there, right? But I wanted it to go all the way there. And I think there was an opportunity for this movie and this story to do that, and it didn't quite do that for me. So I didn't not like it. I liked it. I mean, I enjoyed it. I'd watch it again. I'm not like rushing out to watch it again, or, but if somebody wanted to watch it and I was sure. Yeah, sure. But it wasn't quite what I was hoping it was going to be, but certainly not a bad movie at all. Competently made, serviceable. Yeah. Has some creepy moments for sure. But yeah, that's Late Night with the Devil. All right. Next one here is, again, no particular order except for my last one. Now this one surprised me because I am such a huge fan of the original film. I think it's one of the greatest psychological horror movies ever made, despite its director. And that is 1968's Rosemary's Baby. And when I found out that they were making a prequel to Rosemary's Baby, I was like, went straight to streaming. It's called Apartment 7A. I watched it, and this is kind of an overused cliche, this saying, but it's kind of how I felt at the end of the movie. This was way better than it had any right being. I was very impressed with how the director and the filmmakers handled the source material with care. Listen, it's not as good as Rosemary's Baby, but it doesn't insult Rosemary's Baby. I don't think it necessarily adds anything. Do you know what I mean? It's one of those movies where it's like, well, it doesn't really add anything. I don't walk away feeling like, oh my God, there's so much more, but it doesn't take away anything. It almost feels like, really, at the end of the day, just a remake of Rosemary's Baby, but actually a pretty good modern day remake. As far as like remakes go of classic films, like we've all seen some bona fide dumpster fires. We really have. This is not one of them. If you're a fan of Rosemary's Baby, watch this movie with an open mind. Keep in mind that it's a prequel, so it's set before. I thought the performances were really good. I thought the casting was really good, because obviously a lot of the people that were in Rosemary's Baby are now dead. So I thought the casting was really good. And I thought the performance from our lead actress was really good. And again, it's kind of just like a remake, but it's really well done. And it does connect. By the end of the movie, you do see how they're connecting everything to the events that are about to happen in Rosemary's Baby. But I stopped watching it, or I stopped watching it. I finished watching it, and I was like, I actually enjoyed that. Like, I was expecting not to, right? I was expecting, Rosemary's Baby, one of the titans, one of the great classics, And I watched this, and I'm like, that actually wasn't that bad. You know what I mean? I guess we were expecting, I don't know what I was expecting, but I wasn't expecting this. I thought it was actually quite well done, with actually some really great moments of suspense, some really great horror moments. So if you're a little sort of, apprehensive about watching Apartment 7A, I recommend giving it a chance. I think you will walk away, again, not thinking it's the greatest sequel or prequel of all time or the greatest, but you'll walk away going, you know what? That doesn't make me, they didn't insult my intelligence. They clearly are respect the source material. They respect what's come before, and they are honoring that. And that's impressive. And again, you can take it or leave it, but watching it, I think it's pretty good. As far as these kinds of movies go, it's one of the better ones for sure, in my opinion, which surprised me. It shocked me. All right, let me see here. Okay. Now, this one obviously was the talk of the town in the horror community for a little bit, and that is In a Violent Nature. In a Violent Nature. So, In a Violent Nature. This movie is a Canadian horror film shot right here in Toronto by Canadian indie filmmakers. Not in Toronto. Excuse me, in Ontario. Well, they might have shot some stuff in Toronto. I know they did all of the, I think they did all the post-production sound down at Tattoo post-production here in Toronto. I've been to Tattoo a number of times because I saw Tattoo in the end credits. But it was shot in rural Ontario, so Northern Ontario. And this is a long time coming. I mean, I think they shot this whole movie and then they had to like shoot it again or something like that. I'm not too familiar on the story, but it's something like that. I know that Victoria Miro, of course, who was in the Billy films, one of her good friends is in A Violent Nature, one of her good acting friends. I don't know which girl it is. She did tell me, and I forget. Victoria, I'm sorry. So I'd have to ask her again which girl is her friend. But nonetheless, I thought that was kind of cool. But this is the epitome of low budget indie cinema, and it's a Canadian film, which is awesome. And you know, again, so I watched this movie, and my honest thoughts are, I don't think it's as nearly as great as people say it is. And I also don't think it's nearly as bad as people say it is. For me, it's a little in the middle of the road. I really do tip my hat to the filmmakers for the premise. I think it's a really cool and interesting premise. And it's funny because I was actually quite engaged in the first like 15, 20 minutes. And I was watching the movie, and it kind of felt like I was playing a video game because there's no music, and it's just not that I'm a gamer, but in the past when I have played video games, I felt like I was kind of playing a video game. There's no music. You just hear the elements of the environment and nature. And I've been to like those areas where they shot this, and it really does look like, again, this is like rural Northern Ontario, right? And it really does look like that. Beautiful, beautiful part of Ontario. And, but it's cool because you just have, you know, again, the elements, the nature, and you just hear his footsteps. And where it felt very video game to me, and I say it actually as a positive thing, because I thought it was really cool, was when I was going to say Billy, Johnny, too many E's. When Johnny was walking along, you start to hear the voices from the two guys way off in the distance. And as he gets closer, and of course it doesn't cut, right? So I was very impressed with the choreography of that and the timing of that. I don't know if they had, again, I mean, in post-production, you add a lot of things, you take a lot of things out. They could have had walkie-talkies set up, telling people when to get in the car and went, okay, Johnny's coming now, we're coming, get in the car, hit your mark. I mean, they would have rehearsed it for sure. So how it was done and you know, what part is movie magic and what part is just being really excellent choreography and timing, who knows? But I thought it was really cool. And it felt very video game. Cause you know, like those games you play where you're out in the woods and it's like a, you know, first person shooter game or something. And you just hear the elements and you hear like, you know, the bad guys off in the distance and, hey, what's going on? You know, and you know, you're you know, those kinds of, it felt like that. And then, of course, when he gets closer to the house, that one guy gets in the truck and peels off. The other guy goes in the house. Then Johnny goes in the house, and we fought. Like it felt very video game, but in a great way. I don't mean that as a negative. In actually a very, very, very cool way. And so, like again, up to that moment, I'm like, this is interesting. I wonder where this is going to go. The problem I had. Is I think maybe kind of like Skinamarink, which is another Canadian film, I think. Like Skinamarink, I think this probably would have worked best as a short film, like a 15, 20 minute, maybe half hour short. Because the novelty started to wear off fairly quick for me shortly thereafter that. I thought, again, the kills are great. If you're into that kind of stuff, the carnage candy, as Cody Leach would say, the gore, for sure. I mean, if you're into that, I mean, I don't really care about that, but if you're into that, it certainly has some of that. And I think the premise and the idea is interesting. And I sincerely mean this when I say this, although overall I didn't enjoy it as much as I wanted to, like Terrifier, because the Terrifier films are, I mean, I'll watch them, but they're not my cup of tea, right? You know what I mean? I don't care about that kind of horror, but it's an indie film as well, right? And so like the Terrifier film, even like Skinamarink, which I think would have worked better as a short film, these are indie films it's indie horror. It's great for indie horror. It's great for indie filmmakers. And a rising tide can raise all ships. And so although In a Violent Nature, I wasn't crazy on by the end of the movie, I thought the sort of what we'll call kind of the epilogue part, where, our final girl, I guess, she gets into the car with, the woman and they drive off. I thought that scene just lasted way too long. I thought it was just very long, in my opinion. If I was critiquing it, I would say maybe there's a way we can kind of trim this down a little bit. I have no doubt that Chris Nash, the director, absolutely, there is a creative reason why he's got it that long. And perhaps if he was able to explain it, I'd go, oh yeah, okay, maybe I see it. You know what I mean? But at face value, I felt that it just lingered on too long. And so I felt like it was real. It was like an extra 10 or 15 minutes. At least it felt like that. So again, overall, I didn't like it as much as I wanted to, but I don't think it's like, a piece of crap, like some people are saying, right? It's not a piece of crap. If you think In a Violent Nature or Longlegs are pieces of crap, you've just never seen a piece of crap movie, or you're one of those people that is between the ages of 15 and 25 and you spend way too much time on TikTok. These are not piece of crap movies. But I think, like I said, I think In a Violent Nature may have worked a bit better as a short film. But overall, I'm curious to see what they're going to do, because obviously it did make $4 million at the box office, which was a lot of money for, in comparison to its budget. And of course they announced a sequel at San Diego Comic-Con. So I'm very curious on what Nash and his team are going to do moving forward, because like Terrifier has a shtick, has a gimmick, right? And I don't say this in a negative way, but that shtick and that gimmick is the blood, guts, and gore. Not that there isn't a story there at all, but the Terrifier shtick, the hook, the gimmick is the fact that these are splatter films. These are over the top. It's the gore, the insane gore. That is why you go. And, I've even had Terrifier fans reach out to me and say, yes, Terrifier, and again, this is not me saying this, I've yet to see it. These are your fellow Terrifier fans saying this. They've said to me, like Terrifier 3, didn't like it as much as 2. They've said that. I have seen 2. They said that, yes, Terrifier 3 is bloodier and gorier, there's lots of blood, lots of gore, there's a lot more kills, and it's crazy, but I don't, and this is them saying this, I don't think it's necessarily gorier or bloodier than Terrifier 2. There's just a lot more of the same kind of gore and bloody and blood and all that kind of stuff, which I guess there's more of it. So when you have a hook and a shtick that your series or film relies on, what can happen, right? The novelty can begin to wear off, right? And I think the novelty, at least for some Terrifier fans, is starting to kind of wear off. Okay, look, we've seen this already. It's not really having the same effect it had on me when I first watched the original Terrifier. And like In a Violent Nature, there's a hook, there's a shtick. And that shtick is we are following the killer. Okay, well, for me, the first 15, 20 minutes was really cool. The rest of the movie, I was like, oh, okay, the novelty is beginning to wear off, and this is really lingering and, really long. And some of these death scenes, like the guy who gets the thing and the anyways, I'm just like, Jesus, it's taking forever. And so what is In a Violent Nature 2 going to be like? Is it going to be more of the same thing? And I'm not saying that they don't have ingenious ideas to continually reinvent it. I'm just curious on, are we going to, if In a Violent Nature, how soon, if at all, will there be a shift where, you do follow Johnny, but now In a Violent Nature 2 or In a Violent Nature 3 or, whatever it is, however long the series goes, then suddenly before you realize it starts to resort to a little bit more of a traditional style, like more of a traditionally shot horror movie, right? Not so much following Johnny, because they realize there's only so many times we can do this. Like, we can't just do this with every movie. I mean, or can we? I don't know. I have no idea. So I'm very curious in what the structure and the execution is going to be like within A Violent Nature 2. And maybe it'll be the same thing. Hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? It did make $4 million in the box office. But even for somebody like me, I was like, the novelty, I don't know. Those are things that I think about. I'm very curious about it. We'll see what they do. But congratulations to Chris Nash and the entire team for the success of In a Violent Nature. I think it's really awesome, really cool, and can't wait to see what you do with In a Violent Nature 2. All right, let's move on. Have I got all of them now? I think oh yeah, okay. No, I haven't. Now, this is one that I was dying to see. I just watched it last night. Some of you may be surprised to learn that out of all the 2024 horror movies I've watched this year, that this isn't my number one. Because like I said, this is in no particular order until my number one. So I did watch this last night. I did like it. For sure. I didn't like it as much as my number one, but I did like it. And that is, of course, The Substance. The Substance with Demi Moore. This is a great movie. It's a great movie. I did have a little bit of trouble balancing the satire, and then they would take it very seriously. So it almost like... I mean, obviously there is a social message here about beauty, and the cinematic language in this movie is just rampant all throughout, right? Which I really liked and really enjoyed. And it's very clear what the message is. It's very clear, like all the symbolism and when she's killing her younger self and when she's upset. I mean, it's a whole, not her younger self, but her younger, I mean, it is the representation of her younger self, because as the guy says, you are one, anyways. Really liked it. I just found there were moments where I would be so into it and it would be taking itself so seriously, then all of a sudden they would inject some satire into it, right? The way it was shot or the way that, some people would behave or whatever. And then I'd be like, oh, right. It's that kind of movie. Yeah. And then they'd get back to being a little more serious. And I'm like, oh, this is very serious, and I'd be really into, and then the ending, of course, right? I won't spoil it for you, but the ending is just very satirical, right? Because there was a moment where I was like, wait a minute, how are these people not, wait, okay, if this was actually happening, oh, right, it's not. Okay, yeah, I forgot. Well, now we're into the more of the satire sort of scene here now. And so I did find I was a little bit, I guess because I got really into it. I'm like, oh, right, it's not right, it's this kind of movie. Right. So, but once I got into a rhythm of that, I was fine. But not my favorite of the year, but I did really like it. And I did think that Demi Moore's, Demi, do you say Demi or Demi? Demi or Demi? Her performance was fantastic. She's been nominated for a Golden Globe for it. Will she get the Oscar nom? I don't know. We'll see. Depends on what her competition is like. But I thought this was a really cool idea and a really great way, a great social commentary on beauty and youth. And it's really cool too, how by the end of the film, and this is deliberate, that the, Elizasu, right, is so grotesque and so wild and so disgusting and such a monster. I mean, that is basically telling you that, you might be aging. You might be older than you were when you were 20, but you ain't no Elizasu, so shut the fuck up. I mean, it's not, saying that on the nose, but I'm thinking, yeah, I mean, maybe you've gone through menopause now. Maybe you got some wrinkles around the eyes, I mean, I obviously won't go through menopause, but I got wrinkles around my eyes now. And, you get older and there's aches and pains with that. And you're like, oh God, we're getting older, but hey, I mean, at least we're not Eliza Sue. I mean, it could be worse. I mean, I would gladly take, 55-year-old Demi Moore over Eliza Sue any day of the week, right? And that's sort of part of that. That's why they go to such an extreme, with the monster, with the how things eventually unfold. And so I thought Dennis Quaid was great. The shrimp scene, so disgusting and amazing. I love the makeup job they did with his teeth. Let's hope it's a makeup job. Putting all the yellow in the teeth and everything. And he was great. He was part of the, anytime he came into the scene, it was like, oh, right. Okay. We're into, right. It's a serious horror movie, but it's a satire. There is some satire instilled into it. Right. It's a lot of things in this movie that actually kind of reminded me of Kubrick a little bit. Just a little bit. There's a few moments, just some scenes, the way that the story was being told, some of those satirical elements reminded me of Kubrick, and even some of the ways that it was shot. But I did like this movie. I did. For sure. It's a great film. I think if you're into body horror, like, David Cronenberg style, that kind of stuff, I think you will definitely like it. And I enjoyed it a lot. The Substance. I just watched it last night. All right. Another one that I really did like. Now, this was a movie that I was unaware that it was structured this way. And like when I watch, okay, so it doesn't have subtitles, but like a movie that has subtitles, depending on the movie and how quickly they stay, or how long they stay on the screen, or, whatever it is, it usually takes me about 10 minutes or so. Certainly by the 15-minute mark, I'm in a groove. But there's a little bit of a warming up period if I'm going to watch a movie with subtitles. This movie doesn't have it. I'm just letting you know, sort of. I'm prefacing my thoughts, and so like like there's usually that moment where you're reading, you're watching, and there's just a bit of a groove that I find that takes about 10 minutes for me to get into that groove. Okay, I'm good now. I can watch and read, and I'm not missing anything. This movie, although it didn't have subtitles, was structured in a way where a similar thing happens. Now, if it's done really well, then I have no issues whatsoever. But I have watched movies, and I think we all have watched movies, that have been structured like this, where they bounce around, and depending on the story of the movie or what's happened or how you can get lost and you can get confused. And you're like, oh, where are we? I'm really, you know what I mean? Thankfully, this movie, although it bounced around, I had no issues following. And that, of course, is Strange Darling. I really liked this movie. And I was worried when I was beginning to watch it and I read the synopsis and all that. I was like, oh, fuck. I was like, is this going to be one of those movies that I'm going to get confused by because we're bouncing around and I'm not really sure what's going on? But I wasn't, because of course, as you know, we start, I think, with like chapter 6. It's divided into chapters. We start with chapter 6. This movie, I wouldn't go as far to say that there's satirical elements to it, like, The Substance, but certainly Strange Darling is shot in a way and executed in a way that, there's an auteur element to the way that it's shot and executed, which I appreciate. But I was a little worried, like, oh, it's one of these movies. Okay. Cool. I just hope that it's not going to be, because I have watched some where I'm like, holy fuck, I don't know what's going on. We've all, there's been some movie in our life that's just, you know what I mean? And I had no issues with this one, which was great, thankfully. Really liked it. Obviously, we know that the serial killer ends up being who it ends up being and not who you think it's going to be, which I think is really, really cool. And I actually called it when I was watching it about I'd say about maybe, a quarter of the way through the hotel scene. For those of you that have seen Strange Darling, you know what I'm talking about. I was like, wait a minute. Now, I didn't see a trailer for this movie, so maybe that's revealed in the trailer. I don't know, but I didn't watch a trailer for the movie. I haven't seen a trailer for the movie. I just know that everybody was ranting and raving about it, and so I just read the synopsis and saw who was in it and just started watching it. So I didn't really know. So maybe that's been revealed in the marketing. I don't know, but I didn't know going into it, and I certainly didn't know after chapter 6 because of the way that chapter 6 is executed, right? And even when they're having that conversation in the car back and forth, I'm like, oh yeah, this guy's totally like he's the guy. He's the and it's funny because because obviously it subverts expectations and plays against type, right? Plays against the stereotype. Generally speaking, serial killers are, the other sex. I'm trying not to spoil the movie. But anyway, you kind of can read between the lines. You know what I'm saying? I thought it was very good. The only thing, because I wanted that fucking guy to get his revenge. I wanted him to get his revenge, and he didn't. He didn't get his revenge. I mean, he kind of did, but he didn't. God damn it. I was like, oh, that bitch. But so I was like, oh, fuck. But yeah, great film. Absolutely one of my favorites of the year. I think I like Strange Darling more than The Substance. And I like The Substance. Don't get me wrong. I like The Substance. But I think I might like Strange Darling more. Not sure. I'd have to watch them both again. But I really like this movie a lot. Okay, have I got... let me just see here. I think I... Okay, yeah, so this leaves my number one. Now, again, if you're just joining me, if you're watching after the fact and you've watched this whole thing, I've not seen every single 2024 horror movie. There's some I haven't seen, like I said, Terrifier 3 and The Heretic and what's that one? Jesus. It was the remake of a foreign film. It was about these people that go to this place and this couple is not really what they tend to be. Whatever, the chat will let me know. I haven't seen that one either. The one with Halle Berry and the two kids, haven't seen that one either. There's been a bunch that I haven't seen. So these are just the 2024 horror movies I've seen. And my favorite so far this year that I've seen, that likely I don't know if I'll get a chance to watch, that I've seen, and I was a big fan of the first movie. And this movie, I think, is even better than the first movie. See No Evil. Yes, that's an Evil, Alex. Oh, is it? Speak No Evil. That's it. Speak No Evil. Yeah, I've yet to see that one. So again, there's a bunch of horror movies. Like, don't think that I'm doing... Like, some people will do like a 2024 list and they rank them and they've got like, 180. That's why I'm not ranking them. I'm just letting you know, hey, these are the 2024 horror movies I've seen. I've seen other horror movies this year for the first time. They just haven't been released in 2024. These are the 2024 releases I've seen. And out of the 2024 releases I've seen, this was my favorite. And I really like the first one. I think I like the second one even more. I'm very impressed with the style and how the horror is executed, the suspense. I love the performance from our lead actress, and that is, of course, Smile 2. And I know this was hit and miss for some people. I really liked this movie. There's a lot of creative decisions that were made that are very much in the spirit of the decisions that I would make. Like the opening shot, which is a oneer. Now, there may have been some secret edits in there, perhaps. But the fact that it plays out like a oneer I totally would have shot that as a oneer. I mean, we have two oneers in the two, Billy films, right? And so I like a good oneer. And you don't just do it for the sake of it. I mean, obviously, narratively, it has to make sense, not just stylistically. But when a good oneer, like Talk to Me, the oneer at the beginning of Talk to Me, I thought was excellent, very impressive. And so the oneer at the beginning of Smile 2, I really liked. And of course, you know, the guy that was in Strange Darling is in the beginning of Smile 2, who was in Smile. And I really liked that first one. That first Smile movie, I actually really, really liked. And it only carried over into this film. And I thought, as far as horror sequels go, this was a strong sequel, because sequels, generally speaking, are not as good as their predecessors. Most always they're not as good. Even if they're good, they're not usually as good. There is an argument to be made that Smile 2 is better than Smile. And I thought Smile was really good. So I would say that, yeah, there's just like, and her performance is one of the big reasons why this movie is great. But the way they handled the horror elements, I mean, again, it would take way too long for me to get into, but a lot of the way they crafted the horror elements, the way they structured the horror elements, I thought was absolutely fantastic. And some real great moments of eerie, genuine suspense and scares. And it's a longer film. I don't know if it's longer than the first movie, but I mean, it's longer than most horror movies, I think, right? How long is it? It felt like it was a longer film. Yeah. Parker Finn. I mean, Jesus, so well done. It's 127 minutes long. Now that's a TRT. That's a total runtime with credits, but still, it's a 2-hour movie. And this is Parker Finn. I believe it's his second feature. He did a short film, obviously. His short film, Laura Hasn't Slept, from 2020, is the short film that was the catalyst for Smile. But this is only his second feature. And absolutely impressive. He's a young guy. He's 37. Parker Finn, if you ever see this, congratulations, man. I mean, I'm very impressed with both of these films. Very impressed with your horror directing sensibilities. And it's inspiring, you know, it's inspiring. Again, for somebody like me who is now looking to take that next step, it is inspiring to watch a movie like this. You know, you look at movies now through a bit of a different lens. And there's a few things in this movie that I think I would have done a bit differently, but overall I connected with a lot of what Parker Finn was doing, and he made some smart choices. And there's genuine moments of suspense. And of now, of course, it's left on an epic cliffhanger where, well, wait a minute, if she's smiling now to all those people in the stadium, does that mean all those people in the stadium are now infected? Like, whoa, like what the fuck is going on? You know, like where's that going to go? I've heard that they are going to do a third one, and that Parker Finn apparently is coming back to do the third film. Maybe he wants to finish it off as a trilogy, perhaps. I don't think Smile 2 did as well as Smile. Again, don't quote me on the third film. I thought I read something. But Smile 2, I don't think did as well. Smile 2's box office was, 138 million worldwide. So it didn't do nearly as well. But it still made $28 million. It was still a $28 million budget. Still made $130 million at the box office. And of course, you know, who knows what the PVOD sales are as well, but and any physical media that may exist, but it is, out of all the 2024 horror movies I've seen, this is my favorite horror movie of 2024. Now that could change when I watch, you know, Speak No Evil. That could change when I watch, well, it's unlikely to change when I watch Terrifier 3, but, you know, or The Heretic or, you know, something else, right? But as of right now, yeah, those, and it's unlikely, I don't know, there's only 4 days left in the year. It's unlikely I will, well, it's possible I could watch, it's unlikely. I got shit I have to do, but, yeah, these are, out of the 2024 released horror movies, these are my favorites, and this is my favorite. Smile 2 is my favorite. So, yeah. Anyways, folks, listen, if you're watching after the fact, jump into the comment section. Let me know your thoughts on your favorite horror movies that you've seen, your favorite 2024 horror movies. Now, there's no doubt we've all watched horror movies this year that were not released in 2024, but I want to know what your favorite 2024 horror movies have been. So if you're watching after the fact, jump into the comment section and let me know your thoughts. All right, let's jump over to the chat room and see what all you are saying. Tell me your favorite horror movies this year. I would love to know. Have I got all the super chats that came in? I believe I have. Yes, I did. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anybody. I believe I did. So let's find out what all you are saying. What are your favorite horror movies from 2024? Alex Shambach says, Dave, I hope you go see Nosferatu. It's right up your alley. Yes. I don't know if I'm going to get a chance to see it before the end of the year, but I definitely want to go see Nosferatu. And that could dethrone Smile 2 as my favorite 2024 horror movie. You never know. I am very aware it is right up my alley with mood and atmosphere. And oh yeah, I love that. Again, I want to make, I have no interest in terms of being. Again, I don't know where my career as a filmmaker is going to go, but I have, not that I would turn it down, but I have no interest in being like a filmmaker that makes like blockbusters, right? Like, a Superman or a Star Wars or, a Marvel. If my career ever got to the point where for whatever reason I was ever in a position where I was being considered to direct a movie at that scale, I mean, obviously, clearly I'm doing pretty well. But I'm just happy directing films that, I really want to be excited about films and the stories that I want to tell, and I just get jazzed about, like Nosferatu or even like a Smile, or like a Hush or those smaller scale. I love films that are just Longlegs, you know what I mean? I just want to make movies that are creepy and eerie and atmospheric, and they don't have to be $50 million movies. You know what I mean? They can be a $10 million movie, and I'm talking about budgets, of course, and I just want to make creepy, eerie horror films. You know what I mean? And different varieties of types, of course. But yeah. So yes, I've seen the trailers for Nosferatu. Eggers, obviously, I like his movies. The Witch, The Lighthouse. I mean, those are right up my alley. Obviously, yeah, the trailers look really good. So very much looking forward to that. To the film. Evil Alex says Smile 1 was one of the better mainstream horror films. Surprise Part 2 achieved that also. So I really liked Smile from 2022, I guess it was. And I thought it was good. I enjoyed it personally. But Smile 2 I really liked. Thought it was really great. Jacob Corntho says, shout out to the production designer and costume designer for Strange Darling. The use of red and blue can tell you a lot about what's going on that film. That's true. That is true. Yep. Very smart. It was a great movie. Chester Franklin Jr. says, Maxine. I haven't seen Maxine. Is my number 2, Longlegs, number 3. And it's funny. I'm going to admit something. I also have not seen Pearl. And it's not that I don't want to see Pearl. I just didn't like X as much as most people did. I didn't not like X, right? I liked X. I had no issues with X. I thought it was fine. But I didn't like X enough, apparently, to rush out to see Pearl. Never saw Pearl. Never saw Maxine. It's one of those things that I will eventually get around to them at some point, but just didn't really Hasn't really done much for me. So yeah, I haven't seen Maxine. I'll get around to it. Scrolling back here, scrolling back. Scrolling down. Yeah, that's what people say, Jamie, that I'm going to love Pearl. People keep saying that. You could very well be right, but there's been many times people say that I'm going to love something and I don't end up liking it. But I hope I like Pearl. I do. I obviously didn't like X enough to care about Pearl. It's weird because I don't not like X. I like X. I do. I obviously just didn't like it enough to see Pearl yet. I don't know. It's weird. It's weird, ladies and gentlemen. Weird. Alley Girl says, I will watch Smile 2 tonight. I don't know your taste, Allie, but if you liked the first Smile, I think you should like Smile 2 at the very least. And you know what? I actually recommend, if you didn't like Smile, to watch Smile 2, because you also may actually like Smile 2 more, funny enough. But yeah, I did. Jacob says The House of the Devil and The Innkeepers and Ty West are Ty West's best films, in my opinion. I still have to see The Innkeepers, but I really did like The House of the Devil. Really did like that. Again, like anything, there's maybe a few things I would have done a bit differently, but I did like it. Let me scroll back here. Yeah, tell me more of your favorite 2024 horror films, folks. Let me see here. Travis Lauterbaum says Elevation had an interesting concept, but seemed like a missed opportunity. Evil Alex's Smile 1 was, oh no, I already read that. Let's see here. Flett says, hope you had an amazing Christmas, Dave. What's going on, Flett? Hope you did as well. I got that one. So I'm just trying to scroll through some of the stuff. You guys are talking amongst yourselves. Cody Snyder, what's going on? Cody says, stomp him in the nuts. I'm not sure what that reference is from, but okay. Thinking about the end of Smile 2, I like, again, it was set up where now it's a big, like, it's going to be infected in so many people. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just going to be, there's going to be so many people. If I'm reading that right, because of everybody in the stadium, right? It's kind of crazy. Robert Kitzmiller sends in a member chat. What's going on, Robert? Says Alien Romulus was good. Yeah, I'd never saw it. I was meaning to go see it in the summer, and then I just never got around to it. It definitely doesn't reinvent the wheel, but a good watch for the main female actor. She has Jenna Ortega it factor. I think she can be a big star. Okay, interesting. I'll have to check that out. Jacob says, if you like David Fincher, The Red Rooms is one to check out. Reminds me of something he would do. Very disciplined and well made. The Red Rooms. Like rooms is in plural, not the red room, but the Red Rooms. I'll have to, haven't heard of it. I'll have to check it out. Rosalia says Terrifier 3 did not disappoint with the kills, but the ending was meh. I've yet to see Terrifier 3. I'll have to see that. Evil Alex says Alien Romulus is my least favorite Alien film. Yeah, and I hear that Ridley Scott now wants to make another Alien film. Stop making Alien film. It's getting to the point where it's like Terminator now. Just fucking stop it. You know, sometimes movies are best left in their eras. yes, sometimes there are movies that have stories and things in them that can be, generational and can, and sometimes a movie that didn't do well 30 or 40 years ago is more relevant today than maybe it was back then. But sometimes there are movies that just work best in their era and in their time. I think Terminator is probably, of course, now the subject matter of Terminator is not, though. Like, I mean, you think about, AI and people, rising up and the machines and all. I mean, it's not. I mean, I think what it comes down to, though, I think, and I agree with those that say this about the Terminator franchise, is that at the end of the day, the Terminator franchise might work best as a smaller, independent kind of movie, smaller scale, not so big budget blockbuster. And I think one of the reasons for that is because of the philosophical themes, because of the, no pun intended, because of the human element. It's not that you can't make a big, again, I'm speaking generally, but I think when you make, when you turn Terminator into a big $250 million blockbuster, I think it almost loses its charm and its grounded, realistic feel. And I think that's why, a lot of these, I don't know, it's more of maybe a Terminator series where it's more focused on the human element and drama rather than the pew, 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 would be interesting. I just think that there's some things like that's why that first Alien, was, it wasn't and I know there's aliens, I get that, but it was a very different film. Alien is a horror movie. Aliens is an action movie. And I just think that, sometimes things run its course and you turn things into things that they're not. Maybe the Terminator is best to reboot it as a $50 million movie, where it's more drama, it's more horror drama, it's more, about the human element and, the philosophical dystopian themes and the what ifs and it's not that you don't have action at all, but turning it into a $250 million action movie, I think that's where you kind of lose that a bit, and there's some other films that I think maybe like that, Alien perhaps, especially now. I mean, you could write such an interesting alien movie. That's why I'm really curious to see what Steven Spielberg's The Dish movie is going to be. I don't know if it's going to be released with the title The Dish, but Spielberg is in pre-production on what they classify as an event film. But Spielberg has always been great with characters and cinematic language and themes and things like that. Spielberg can make a big blockbuster, but it doesn't feel necessarily like a big blockbuster because it's not necessarily all about, the show, right? It's got a lot of heart and a lot of human element to it. That's one of the things that I know there are people that just love Interstellar, and I don't love Interstellar. I like Interstellar. I like Interstellar's, philosophical, conceptual, scientific parts about, time dilation. Like, I love all that. But Nolan has never been great in my mind with the human element. I know there's this scene with Matthew McConaughey crying because he sees his daughter. I'm speaking generally, right? When you watch Nolan's movies generally, or when you watch his movies, generally, all his characters are cold. Like, I don't really feel emotionally attached to his characters in the ways that I want to be. Again, it's just kind of a theme that I find. He's great conceptually, and his movies conceptually, and it's just like, wow, like all the layers and the whoa, wow, whoa, whoa. But the human element tends to be a little cold for me, whereas Spielberg has always been great with the human side of things. And Spielberg, for those of you that may not know, was initially attached to direct Interstellar. Now, I don't know if we would have got the same movie or how much Interstellar changed. I don't know. Maybe not a lot, maybe a whole bunch. But when I found out that Spielberg was this is back in like 2010, you know what I mean? That Spielberg was going to be directing Interstellar about the general theme, about, time to, oh my God, and all this kind of, I was like, oh, fuck. I was like, oh, I really want to see a Spielberg Interstellar. But that didn't end up happening because Spielberg was so busy with tons of other projects. And of course, Nolan, and don't get me wrong, Nolan is one of the great titans working today. I just find his movies, the character element of his movies, cold. On the colder side, where Spielberg, I find, really does well with characters. So anyways, Spielberg is doing a movie tentatively titled, at least at the moment, it might change, called The Dish. And it's a UFO film. And apparently, I think he was inspired to do it because of all the shit that's going on right now with UAPs and UFOs and all that. And it's being classified, as I said, as an event film. So I'm very, very interested to know, what it's going to be. I hope, and I'm somebody that actually likes Spielberg's War of the Worlds. I hope whatever The Dish is, I hope it is more mature and philosophical, like Interstellar in a lot of ways. Like Contact. Like my favorite alien movie is not Interstellar. And I not that it's an alien movie. Not that Interstellar was an alien movie. But my favorite alien movie, if you will, that deals with time dilation and those larger themes is actually Robert Zemeckis' Contact from 1997 with Jodie Foster and Matthew McConaughey. Because that movie feels real. It deals with real scientific principles. It deals with real theories that are not just theories. Time dilation exists. It's real. If I did travel at the speed of light across the galaxy for 5 years and came back, you would all be dead and I would be, 50. That's real. That's been proven. We haven't been able to prove it to that degree because we can't travel at the speed of light, but we proved it in small instances. And so I find that fascinating, really, really interesting. And that of course is a part of Contact it's Contact. And I think it still holds up today because it deals with those principles and it's more mature. It deals with the philosophical themes and the characters are great. And Robert Zemeckis, although he's, hasn't had a hit in a long time, he's a great director. And it's one of my favorite movies that deals with this subject matter. And so I'm hoping that whatever The Dish ends up being is more Contact, more Interstellar, but with Spielberg's way of building characters, than War of the Worlds or, Independence Day. Like, I don't want a fucking Independence Day. I don't want that. Please, for the love of Christ, Spielberg, don't give me an Independence Day. I don't want that. I want a mature, grounded, movie like Contact that deals with, it's like, it makes you walk away going, wow, fuck, holy fuck. I mean, it's not a Star Wars movie. It's not an alien invasion movie. It's not Signs. And I like Signs. But I didn't like how it just became like every other, the aliens are bad and they're coming here to kill us and let's beat the shit out of them with a baseball bat. I didn't like that shit because I don't know, maybe it's where I am in my age now and all that kind of stuff. But I like to think about these larger than, these themes and these the universe and, where are we and who are we and what's our place and death and consciousness and all that's where I am now, right? And where I've been for a long time. And not that movies like Independence Day, alien invasions, aliens bad, America good, pew, 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 pew. Yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, okay. But we've been there. Let's, I want more substance, not the substance, mind you. Not that, but more substance. You know what I mean? I want more of a thinking man's movie. I don't. So I'm hoping whatever The Dish is ends up being more that. And Spielberg can do that. I mean, look at AI. Look at Close Encounters and Spielberg has even E.T. Spielberg has a way of delivering those larger themes and those philosophical themes and more of that drama as well as the character elements. So fingers crossed for The Dish whatever it ends up being. Michael Parton sends in $2. Thank you, Michael. Says, Dave, what are your thoughts on the Smile movies? Oh, you must be late. I just talked about them. Smile 2 is my favorite horror movie of 2024 so far. Anyway, and Smile 1 I really liked. I really liked both Smile movies. Andrew Stevens, one of our great moderators, says, these films just need to stick to doing one film and maybe a sequel. Just doing one after another, just a waste of time. You're milking for money. We see it from the product you give us. I'm not sure what movies you're talking about, Andrew, but I will take your word for it. Jacob says, the problem with Nolan is that he tries to throw emotional beats in there, but it feels half-hearted. He needs to embrace his inner Kubrick and make something that commits to being cold and analytical. Yeah, I think, you know what, that's a good point. Kubrick, in a lot of ways, wasn't a very warm director either. But he didn't care. Like he didn't, not that there weren't warm elements to some of his movies, but you are right. Kubrick's films generally aren't warm films. They're more analytical. They're more about the philosophical themes, and the characters are, I'm not going to say the characters in Kubrick films are one-dimensional, but they're maybe like, you know, your lead character might be 2-dimensional and your supporting characters might be 1.5 dimensional. Now, that doesn't mean that your 2-dimensional character doesn't end up having a 3-dimensional experience, but you're right. Generally speaking, Kubrick's movies tend to be a little colder on the human side, but rich with fucking juicy shit on the philosophical, you know, the cinematic language, the themes, the story side, right? And Nolan, I find, is kind of like that. I don't find him a very warm, emotional director character-wise. His movies are great. Inception is great. You know, Interstellar, yes, it's great. It's good. You know, the Batman movies are good. Yeah. You know, I really like, my favorite Nolan movie actually might be The Prestige. I think The Prestige is just bloody fantastic. You know, he's great. He's a great director. And to your point, maybe he just needs to do away with, because it's clearly not his thing. Not that he couldn't do it, but yeah, I think he's more caught up in you know, the themes and the drama of the story and you know, the messages and that's all great. And his characters sort of play second fiddle. They're just kind of there. But Spielberg is not like that. He's never been like that. And, you know, some people might criticize him for that as well, that maybe he's a little too emotional. But, you know, who knows what AI would have been if Kubrick had the opportunity to do it. Because it was originally a Kubrick film. But Kubrick, I forget why he didn't do it. I don't know if it was because he was trying to get Napoleon going, because I know he wanted to do a Napoleon film, not the Napoleon film that came out recently from what's his face, Scott. Is it really Scott that did it? Anyway, but in the early to mid 90s, Kubrick wanted to do a Napoleon film, like an epic kind of. Oh God, who knows what that would have been like. And maybe that's why I'm not sure, but I do know that Kubrick never had the chance to do it, AI, but he said the only other person I want doing it is Steven Spielberg. And that should tell you everything you need to know right now. Yes, Spielberg and Kubrick were friends. They met when Kubrick was making The Shining and Spielberg was making E.T. because they were both on the same lot. But they became friends. And Kubrick would not have handed that off to Spielberg if he didn't think that Spielberg could do it justice. Now, it's a different movie than probably what Kubrick would have done. Yes, because Spielberg is Spielberg and Kubrick is Kubrick. But there's a lot of Kubrick in there as well. But Spielberg was able to deliver a human element to, is it Davey? Dave? I think it's Davey, right? The played by Haley Joel Osment. Is it Davey? I think it is. Anyway. I really like AI. It's dark, but it's good. Anyways, it's interesting. Michael Parton, $5. Thank you, Michael. Says, what I meant to say is, what are your thoughts on Terrifier movies? Oh, okay. Well, that's very different than the Scream movies. To me, they are like a throwback to the video nasty era. Also, clowns scare me. Well, I have not seen Terrifier 3. I have seen the first 2 Terrifier movies. And like I've said many times on the channel, they're not my kind of horror movies. So they're not the kind of horror movies I would want to make. They're not the kind of horror movies I would naturally sit down to watch. But that's not to say that there isn't a place at the table for them. I recognize their significance. I recognize, especially with, Terrifier 3 having made as much money as it has. It's not distributed or made by a studio. It's truly independent, and it's great for independent horror. And certainly, although the splatter, gratuitous blood, guts, and gore shtick and gimmick is not for me, I certainly will watch Terrifier 3 because I want to watch it, so I'm up on it, so I can be informed when I talk about it. But I couldn't care less. I mean, they're not, I get the appeal. I understand the appeal. I get the appeal. I don't know what the longevity is and where that's going to go because of the shtick and the gimmick. And it only has a limited appeal. Obviously, Terrifier 3 made a ton of money because it started to branch out to mainstream, and now people from the mainstream want to go and check it out. Remember, just because a movie makes a lot of money at the box office doesn't mean it's a good movie. It just means a lot of people went to see it, right? And that's true with any movie. It's not like you can't get your money back. So there's no doubt that there were people that went to see Terrifier that were, on the Terrifier train and never heard of it, never seen, the others. But now that it's getting a wide release, you're getting the mainstream, the general public now going to see it. Well, how much of that general public will now come back to support 4? We don't know yet. Right? You know what I mean? So we're not sure, because there's no doubt that there would have been some of the general public that were like, oh, fuck, what the fuck is this? Yeah, I don't. And then when Terrifier 4, comes out, they're like, yeah, no, I don't need to see it. It's fine. Right? But their money still counts and goes towards the total tally of part 3 because, well, you can't get your money back just because you didn't like a movie. So, but kudos, right? I mean, kudos to, I respect the hustle. I do. And it's good for independent horror. It's good for independent horror across the board. But are the Terrifier movies my kind of movies? No. Are they my kind of horror movies? No. That's not throwing shade. That's just like how, I don't know, somebody might be like, yeah, like the kind of horror movies that you like, Dave, like more of the highbrow, psychological, theater, all that kind of stuff, oh, you're pretentious highbrow, whatever. Somebody might be like, that's not my kind of horror movie, right? You know what I mean? I mean, there were some people that watched It's Me, Billy Chapter 1 when it first came out 3 years ago, and they didn't say this verbatim, but we're basically saying this. What is this? Like, where's the blood? Where's the guts? Where's the gore? Not enough, killing. It was boring. It was slow. It was this, whatever the case is. Because they didn't realize that I wasn't making Black Christmas '06, that I was making a film more in line with the original movie, more of that psychological slow burn, right? There's lots of people that don't like slow burn movies. They just don't like them, I mean, not gonna say they don't like them, but they don't naturally gravitate towards them, right? They find them boring or slow or, whatever the case is. They want Terrifier or Friday the 13th or, Chucky or, whatever it is. And that's fine. There's room for everybody at the table. For me, I like more of the theater of the mind, the slow burn, the Longlegs, even what Smile 2 did. Not that there's not some blood in the Smile movies, there is, but the way that Parker Finn has crafted the Smile movies, it's a really nice balance, and there's some genuine, terrific moments of suspense and slow burn theater of the mind in those movies, which I really, really appreciate, because you could easily turn Smile into some sort of pedestrian, Slender Man movie. I mean, you could easily do that, and Parker Finn hasn't done that, and so respect. And of course I like Hereditary and The Witch, and I like movies that really get me in here. Even The Conjuring. Conjuring is a little more I'm talking about the first movie. The first Conjuring is a little more mainstream, right? But I think the first Conjuring and the first Insidious movie are two of the best mainstream studio released horror movies of the last 20 years. They have nice balance of slow burn, theater of their mind. They don't peak too soon. Whereas the third Conjuring movie, Now they've got the fourth one that's going to be coming out soon. But the third Conjuring movie, I found peaked too soon, right? I like horror movies that take you on a journey, right? You've got to go on this journey. It's like a roller coaster. If you go rah! In the first 5 minutes of the movie with all this shit, you have nowhere left to go for your audience. And so I really appreciate more of that slower kind of burn. The Terrifier films, they are what they are. But I respect the hustle. Thank you, Michael. And then super chat from Josh McKenna. What's going on, Josh? Sends a $9.99 and says, would you do a cinematic language breakdown show of Billy 2 like you did for chapter 1? Or maybe a breakdown of your favorite movies? I love that stuff. Yeah, I could do that. That might be kind of, I did do that for chapter 1. You're right, I did. Yeah, I could do it for chapter 2. That might be kind of fun. If anybody's interested in that. But yeah, I could do that because sometimes when you watch sort of the creative intention behind certain things, it helps to bring what a show like that would do, and what listening to filmmakers talk about their movies sometimes do. That doesn't mean that, you have to like the movie they make or agree with all the creative, decisions, but sometimes listening to the creative choices and the reasoning behind certain decisions, what that sometimes can do is bring certain elements from the movie that are in your subconscious that you may not understand consciously, and bring them to your conscious mind and give you a bit of, a different perspective on it. Go, now I see, oh my God, now there's a lot of people that can make the argument and say, oh, well, if I didn't get that the first time I watched it, then it didn't work. And it's like, well, no, that just means it didn't work for you, but it worked for a lot of other people, right? Everybody's different. How we retain information, how we get information. And I say this with all due respect. I'm not talking about anybody specifically. I just say this as sort of a general thing. We all have different levels of, intelligence when it comes to understanding cinema, right? I'm not saying I'm the world's most foremost expert on cinema. I'm not, right? There's some movies I watch that go right over my head and I'm like, what the hell? I don't get it. That doesn't mean that the movie's shit and it's a piece of crap. No, not at all. It just means there might be things that are just kind of a little too above me, but then when I watch it, I go, oh yes, I see it. But then there's some people that are maybe a bit smarter than I am, that totally get it and that see it right away. It's no different than learning about other things in life, right? Movies, when you tell stories, when you're telling stories, filmmakers, depending on who you are, will use symbolism and cinematic language and, mythology and certain things to craft their story in a way that can affect your audience. And horror, great horror movies do this, can affect the viewer subconsciously, right? And so, and it's intentional. And so sometimes things might not make sense to the average viewer because they're not informed enough to understand what's going on or what's happening. And then when you learn about it, you go, oh, fuck, yes. Oh, like there's lots of movies over my life that have seemed sort of like, 2001. When I first watched 2001, I was like, but as I got older, the more I learned about film and storytelling and Kubrick, I watched 2001 now and I'm like, holy fuck, that's brilliant. Oh my God. Oh, I get it. I totally get it. Right. And so, sometimes that's I'm not, because there's somebody out there. I'm not saying my Billy films are on the level of 2001. I'm simply saying that Bruce and I are the kind of filmmakers that really appreciate movies like Hereditary, The Others with Nicole Kidman from 2001, one of my favorite horror movies of all time. The Shining, like movies that are deemed to be a little more elevated. That doesn't mean that they're pretentious. It just means that they're elevated in the sense of that the story elements and the themes being crafted and told are being done through the use of symbolism and cinematic language and using the art of storytelling to not necessarily be so on the nose. It's not as linear as watching, Friday the 13th Part 3. You know what I mean? Where it's just like A, B, C, D. There's not a lot of verbal clutter there. There's not a lot of thinking that needs to go on. It is what it is. Whereas when you get to The Shining, or you get to, movies like that, or, it's a little more, the filmmakers are asking you to pay a little more attention, to think a little more deeply. And as I've gotten older, and certainly now at 45, those are my favorite kind of horror movies, because I think they really do affect the psyche, really do affect you psychologically in ways that are I love, like I said at the top of the show, I love movies that are rich and dripping with mood and atmosphere, even when nothing creepy is happening on screen. And Longlegs especially, and even Smile 2 to a degree, but Longlegs more so. Even when nothing creepy is happening, just two people talking in a room, it feels eerie. The picture feels eerie. When I say picture, I don't mean, the look of the picture. I mean, the movie. It feels eerie. I feel eerie. This feels eerie. There's just this constant, perpetual state of low-key eeriness. You know what I mean? I love movies. Now, not every movie needs to be crafted that way or should be crafted that way, but I really appreciate when films are. And, I think we try to do that for the most part in our Billy films. There's and that can be done with setting, location, pacing, performances, camera angles. There's ways that, how you craft it. But I love that kind of shit. Anyways, I digress. Sorry, Josh. You got me excited. But yes, I would be more than happy to sit down and do a show on that and walk you through some of the decisions we made and why we made, certain things. Like, one of my favorite things that I pointed out to somebody from chapter 1, when you watch It's Me, Billy chapter 1, when we open the shot of the dining room, I've talked about this, but it's one of my favorite moments, because again, it affects you sort of in a weird sort of way, where the phone is in the living room, right? The black rotary phone. If you pay close attention to where it's situated and the height of where it is, and you do get sort of a good shot of it when Victoria first walks into the room. When we open the dining room scene, when we're tracking left to right, and we come from the darkness and we open, the dining room scene, and we see the three ladies at the table, where the camera settles and sits is in the same position and the same height as the phone in the living room. And these are things that the audience won't necessarily think of consciously, but the way that it's framed and the angle that it's framed, the height that it's framed at, can affect your audience subconsciously. You don't necessarily understand why you're feeling the way you do, but it's a deliberate choice that the filmmaker is making you feel. It's done intentionally. And I don't profess to be an expert on it. I'm just simply saying that what I've learned over the years from the auteur, like real, auteurs, or like your Kubricks or even your Nolans or your Scorseses, or I don't know if Spielberg would be considered an auteur, but he certainly has auteur elements. They understand this. They understand how to affect audiences and how to craft stories and in ways that can make your audience feel a certain thing. You don't really understand why you're feeling it. Anyways, when I pointed that out, I did talk about this on the channel, but when I pointed out to this viewer, they said, "Oh my God." They said, "I caught that." They said, "I knew that, but I wasn't sure." Like it felt like Billy was watching them, but and I'm like, yeah, Billy is not down there, but the phone is the representation of Billy, right? And so it's almost as if Billy is watching them from, the living room. Just little things like that, to tell stories in that way. I really like that, because I want my audience, as a viewer, I like feeling a certain way. I like when horror movies make me feel a certain way. And those are the kind of horror movies I hope to make one day, to make you watch a Dave McRae horror film where you feel a certain way. You know what I mean? That, and hopefully, the Billy films, to one degree or another, help to do that as well. But yeah, no, I'll probably do that. It'll be fun to do. Davey Deathray says, I think Kubrick started AI but passed away during production. No. No. Kubrick passed away. I don't know. I don't think so, Davey. I don't think so. I think it was a Spielberg film from the very beginning, as far as I know. I don't recall Kubrick being attached to actually direct the movie. I could be wrong on that, but I think it was passed to Spielberg long before, I think, but I stand to be corrected. Thank you, Josh. Appreciate the super chat. Do I have all the super chats? I just want to make sure. I do. I think I do. I just want to make sure, folks. I just want to make sure. Mike Mullen says, I love The Substance. Demi Moore was incredible, as well as everyone else. Yeah, she was great. No doubt about it, folks. No doubt about it. She was good. Kevin Ketchy says, Dave, I'd love to hear your thoughts on Martyrs 2008. Oh, I haven't seen it. Now that's a movie full of dread, psychological horrors, and gut-wrenching violence that has a message. It's thoroughly brutal, impressive. I know. It's one I haven't seen yet. I have to see it. Wasn't there a remake? Was there a remake of that? Or was there not a remake of that? I can't remember. But yeah, no, I definitely want to see that. I've got to see that for sure. I've got to say it. Blueprint GB says, I seen Dylan Zoo Nightmare, Dave. I'll rate it a 7 or 8 out of 10. Well, there you go. I'm glad you watched it. Thank you. Allie Girl says, I'm so ready for the Dave McRae horror movie era. Oh, I am too, Allie. I don't know what 2025 will bring. But my fingers are crossed that I can take my filmmaking career to the next level. We'll see what happens. Let me see here. Evil Alex says, High Tension is my favorite French horror film, both gory and bloody and moody and atmospheric. High Tension is great, or as it's known overseas, Switchblade Romance. I like that title, Switchblade Romance. That's such a great title. High Tension, I saw High Tension when it first came out, and I loved it. Definitely one of my favorite psychological horror films of all time, with a great twist. So yeah, I quite like that as well. Travis says, Dave got my tree ornament the other day. It's very cool. Awesome, Travis. Yes. So glad you got it. Good to hear. Good. Awesome. Modern Peasant says, you're right, Dave. Patsy wearing the same clothes the next day says it all. Oh, at first I was like, what are we talking about? Well, I can't say that says it all, but I will say that I don't want to get into a long thing here because I have to wrap up. But I will say that it is not one specific thing from the JonBenet Ramsey case. And I watched the Netflix documentary, and I think it is incredibly biased, and there is a lot they left out. It did its job to make you feel remorseful and to believe that there was an intruder and that poor John Ramsey and his family, and that's fine. It did its job, but it was not weighing both sides equally, because there is a lot it left out. But I will just say it is not one thing that points to the whole thing being, a ruse. It is multiple things that add up. And I'll just leave it there because I will be talking about it in the future. Motionless Zombie says, hey Dave, my top 5 horror movies of the year are Terrifier 3, The Substance, Mr. Crockett, Abigail, and Late Night with the Devil. Okay. Late Night with the Devil, Abigail, Mr. Crockett, The Substance, and Terrifier 3. I haven't heard of Mr. Crockett. Is that Davy Crockett? Davy Crockett, King of the Wild Frontier. I haven't heard of it. Have not heard of it. Let me see here. Tom Montgomery says, Jack Black and Paul Rudd are making a new spooky Anaconda movie. Hollywood is dying. Is it spooky though? I heard it's kind of like, I read something about how but it's self-aware. Like their favorite, I think it's a comedy, isn't it? Their favorite movie is Anaconda. So they go to the Anaconda to see if they can find an anaconda or something. I don't think it's a serious horror film. I mean, I could be completely wrong. But I don't think it's a serious horror film, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Who knows? Tom Hungarian says, Dave, art is made to be presented to everyone, and we make our opinions rather like or dislike. So if one of us doesn't like your movie, would you be offended or upset, or just accept that art is some opinion? Well, look, I mean, I always hope people like the movies that I put out. But that's not reality. It's not reality. Listen, so whether it's me making a movie or somebody else, like, for example, if you don't like the Billy films I did, well, that's fine. You don't have to like them. You have your reasons why you don't like them. Now, there is, as I've said many times on this channel, there is a difference between a critique and an opinion. If you say, I hate, Longlegs. I thought Longlegs was dog shit. That's an opinion. And that's your opinion, and that's how you feel. Critiquing a film is different because it comes from a place of being informed on the subject of movies and storytelling and 3 acts and what works and what doesn't, all that kind of stuff. And so if you are a movie reviewer, you can have an opinion. Most movie reviewers are, the best movie reviewers have an understanding of film and the filmmaking process. And that's why they give the best critiques, because they can understand certain things. But you have to be prepared to be a movie reviewer for your critique to be critiqued. So your opinion doesn't have to be critiqued, although it can, but it's just an opinion. It's just, I think this is shit. Well, okay. That doesn't mean anything. But if you're going to put yourself out there and start critiquing, your critique can be critiqued, right? And you have to be prepared for your critique to be counter-critiqued. Like scientific papers are submitted for peer review. No scientific paper, no scientist worth their salt just gets published in American Scientific. No, scientific papers are peer reviewed by other scientists and sometimes are challenged, right? That doesn't mean that the person is wrong necessarily, but it can mean that, well, you know what, but you didn't think of this, or what about this, or I'm going to challenge you on this. Yeah, but I know you're critiquing it kind of is, has to be held up to a standard, right? Criticism should be held up to a standard. And so if somebody can say to me, Dave, or if somebody says, I thought It's Me, Billy was shit. Okay. Okay. Get in line from the other, people that might, think that way. But if somebody says, Dave, really like the movie, or you know what, I wasn't crazy on it, and here's why. I think that maybe, what you did here, or this, or that, or, give these critiques, whatever, and that doesn't mean I'm going to agree with it, right? That's what I'm going to agree, because you have to be prepared for your critique to be counter-critiqued, possibly. Sometimes a critique I could look at and go, yeah, I agree with all that. But sometimes I go, okay, well, I understand what you're saying there, but what you're not taking into consideration is the motivation of the character. And the reason why she does this instead of that is because of this. And when you look at what happened and the journey happened, and sometimes that might make the critiquer go, oh, yeah, okay, I didn't think of that, because maybe you're thinking of it from a different level. Or you might come back with, well, no, I get what you're saying, but I still not sure that I think that would happen. That's what real critiquing is. And real actual film criticism is really few and far between. Real authentic. Most criticism online with films are just opinions. It's like, I think it was shit because I didn't like that. Well, that doesn't mean anything, right? Like I'm talking about like that doesn't, I know that some people say, well, I don't need to make a movie to critique a movie. Well, no, you don't have to have made a movie to critique a movie, but you sure as hell should understand how a movie is made and how a story is told and what 3 acts are and what character motivations are and what character development is and what structure is. And you better have a fucking understanding of that before you start, critiquing a major motion picture. I mean, and I mean actual movie film criticism. You gotta at least know that, right? Because otherwise it doesn't mean anything. So anyways, I just wanted to say that and say that you can't get into this business expecting everybody to like you. Just as I got on YouTube and not everybody likes it or likes me. Right? There's been lots of people that have taken to Reddit or taken to online. They don't like me. That's not why I'm here. I couldn't give a frog's fat ass whether you like me or not. I'm not here to make friends. I mean, I've made friends, which is great, but that's not why I'm here. I'm here to just say my opinions and say my thoughts and have fun and, whatever the case is. And people will like me, people won't like me. And it's the same with the movies that I end up releasing. It's the same with the Billy films. There are people that really like the Billy films. There are people that don't like the Billy films. There are Black Christmas purists, like Halloween, purists. There are Black Christmas purists that hate the Billy films. No, Jess Bradford died. And the fact that these 2 movies, no, I can't, no, she died. What is this? You're showing too much of Billy. You show this and doing this and the Billy films are garbage. 1 out of 5. And then there's the complete opposite side of the coin where there are Black Christmas purists that go, oh my God, thank you. Yes, this is way more in line than the 2006 movie or the 2019 movie. Oh my God, what you guys have done. And, the production value and the acting and how look and the sound design. This is fantastic. This is so cool. This is really awesome. Good job. This is great. You got that side too. And then you get people in the middle like, oh, you know what? I like chapter 1 more than I like chapter 2. And then you get some people like, I like chapter 2 more than I like chapter 1. And you get some people, oh, I wish you didn't do that. Oh, but I love this. Or I didn't do that. That's like any movie. Me making a movie, I'm not going to be, shielded from that. Right? Christopher Nolan isn't shielded from it. Steven Spielberg isn't shielded from it. Stanley Kubrick isn't shielded from it. Little Dave McRae isn't shielded from it. No movie, no filmmaker is shielded from it. The only thing I will say is that if you want me to take you seriously, you have to say more than like, this is shit. Like that doesn't mean anything to me. Like that doesn't, I don't even know what that means. Like it doesn't, I mean, it's, you may not like my films, but they're not garbage, right? Like you may go, I didn't like them. They didn't work for me, but it's not garbage. They're not trash. You know what I mean? We've all seen trash, right? You know what I mean? I'm very proud of my films, and obviously because we made them. And yeah, I mean, I'm again, we put a lot of hard work and a lot of effort into them, but I'm under no delusions that there are going to be people out there that it's not going to work for, right? I stand by what I've said before, and that is, I think because of the way chapter 2 was designed, I think until we're able to put them together in one, thing, I think it will always work best if you watch at least chapter 1 first, and then it will work the best if you watch all 3 together, because chapter 2 is not its own separate movie. It literally is just the last half of the story, right? And there have been a couple of people that have reached out to me and said, I watched chapter 2 when it was released in October, and I thought it was like, I liked it, but this Christmas, I just watched all 3 together. Oh, and I love chapter 2 way more now because you're watching the whole story take place, right? And then you're like, oh, because it's fresh in your mind and you see how we've connected everything, right? And so that was really cool to hear. But no, I'm under no delusions that everything I put out, people are going to love. No, there's going to be things I put out that people don't like. There's going to be things I put out that people love. If I'm fortunate enough to have a film career making movies, that's what's going to happen, right? And you always hope that you have more hits than misses, but that's just part of being in the game. You know what I mean? Like that's part of taking the risk, putting yourself out there, being vulnerable, doing the best you can. And you know what I mean? That's part of it. There's so many people in this world that won't do that, that don't do that, that will just sit in their bedrooms behind a screen and criticize. And that's fine. If you want to do that, that's fine. But I have things I want to do and shit I want to get done. And I want to go out there and make shit happen. And sometimes I'm going to make shit happen that you don't like. And sometimes I'm going to make shit happen that you absolutely love and think is awesome. That's just the nature of making movies, right? You know what I mean? We always hope people like what we like. I always hope people are like, oh, that was so great. But if they don't, I can't get too upset about it because, well, like you said, that's art, right? There's people that watch my Billy films that love them. There's people that watch them that don't like them. And there's a variety of reasons why they don't. Right? Some people will watch my films, the 2 films I've made, and it's just not their style. They're not Black Christmas fans. They don't get the references. They don't understand the lore or the mythology or the history. They've never seen the original movie. It just doesn't resonate with them. There's some that watch it. They're just like, I think you showed Billy too much. And then I explain why we made the decisions we did. And they're like, oh yeah, okay, I guess, but I'm not really crazy. You get those people. And then you get people that love it. And then you get people, that is what movies are like. I mean, listen, Osgood Perkins, right? I like Longlegs. Maybe you didn't. He's not, at home going, some people didn't like my movie. I mean, we know that going in. We always have our fingers crossed that, I hope this is gonna hit. But, and sometimes it will, and sometimes it won't. Maybe I'll make a movie one day that hits like Smile 2, where I was really good, or hits like, Hereditary, or hits like, people are like, wow. And then there might be a time where I make a movie that hits like, I don't know, Slender Man or something. I don't know. You know what I mean? I mean, who knows, right? I mean, they can't be hits all the time. Even Nolan may not have a bad movie, but Nolan has his movies where even Nolan fans are like, it was okay. It was okay. You know what I mean? They can't be hits all the time, right? That's just art. That's just art. And there's reasons for it, right? But I'm just excited to, now that I've done these 2 movies and shown what myself and Bruce can do, I'm excited to go on and make movies with Bruce, but I'm also excited to solo direct as well. We do want to solo direct. That might not be the next thing we do. We might direct together again, but I do have a keen interest on solo directing as well. And I know that Bruce does too. So fingers crossed that 2025 can bring some big things. Can bring some big things, ladies and germs. All right, I'll go a few minutes longer. We're coming up to 2 hours here, so I'll go a few minutes longer. Did I miss any super chats? I don't think I've missed any super chats. I just want to make sure I haven't missed any. The last one came in was from Josh McKenna. Yep, okay. Excuse me. Just want to make sure I'm not missing any super chats. Let me go back. Here we are. Okay, let me scroll down. There we go. Scared Straight Production says, can't wait to see Dave McRae originals. Me too. I just, yeah. Keep your fingers crossed, folks. Keep your fingers crossed. Blueprint GB says, Dave still got that similar energy that had back when I last saw him. Well, I haven't gone anywhere. I've always been here, uploading content. I guess you've just taken the extended break, my friend. Good to see you. Let me see here. 5Gs of horror. My favorite horror movie was surprisingly is a Lifetime movie called Shove a Pumpkin Up My Ass. Well, that sounds like a great horror movie. Shove a Pumpkin Up My Ass. Sounds a great movie for Lifetime. Great movie. Flashpoint says, Dave, would you direct other genres or are you interested in horror only? I think, no, I would if it made sense. I think, I definitely want to direct horror. I think that is where my strengths lie. But at the same time, I think I'm a very emotional person. Like I wear my heart on my sleeve. I'm very attentive. I care about people when I, obviously, people that are close to me. And so I've always been I think I would be and I have ideas, short little treatments that I've written about, like, films that are more drama based, more character driven, and so there are some drama ideas, some drama films that I have that I think that I wouldn't mind taking a crack at. Not that you have to be that kind of person to do that, but I just mean I have a very strong sensibility of emotions and things like that. So yeah, there's certain drama. Comedy, I think, would be very difficult because comedy is timing in a lot of cases, and so is horror. Of course, that's why horror and comedy go hand in hand. But overall, like in a general sense, yeah, I would like to probably stick with horror. Horror is what excites me. Horror is what gets me really jazzed and going, horror ideas and stories. But that doesn't mean that once I've done that for a while, and maybe I've got 4 or 5 horror movies under my belt, that there's not another project that comes along where I'm like, this is, it's a drama, sci-fi, but I totally want to do this because I really like the story, or I really like, where it goes, or, whatever the case is. Right. So I could see that happening too. But, yeah, my first love, I think, will always be horror. All right, folks, listen. That is going to do it for me here on episode 301 of McRae Live. I want to thank you all for tuning in. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you to my moderators, of course. Thank you to my channel members. If you want to be a channel member here on the channel, hit that join button and become a member of either level number 1 or 2. Thank you to the super chats that came in today. I really appreciate it. And if you're watching after the fact, jump into the comment section and let me know your thoughts on your favorite horror movies of 2024. The 2024 horror movies, not horror movies that you saw in 2024 that were released in other years, but horror movies that were released in 2024. Jump into the comment section and let me know your thoughts on what on what your favorites were and what do you think of my list here. Again, my list was in no particular order except for number 1. So far, and I've yet to see, as of this video, I've yet to see Nosferatu, so I do have to go see that. But so far, as of right now, my favorite horror film is Smile 2. Smile 2, with perhaps the substance and Strange Darling, like really right behind. It's like Smile 2, Strange Darling, the substance, or Smile 2, the substance, Strange Darling. I'm not sure. It's right there. It's right there. All right, folks, have a great rest of your Friday. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. I definitely will be back before the new year, of course, with another episode of something. But have a great rest of your Friday. Have a great rest of your holidays, because I think most people probably, I don't know, maybe you're off until the new year. I'm not sure. But I hope you are enjoying your holidays, and have a great rest of your Friday and happy weekend. And I will talk to you all very, very soon. All righty. In the meantime and in between time, cheers.